to this week's episode of Working for the Rich and Famous podcast. Hope you're all well. Another week's passed. Now in October, which is just bananas. It's just weird with lockdown, isn't it? I think you think with lockdown not doing a lot, you think time will drag. But actually, I think during lockdown, how has it gone from March to October? It's mad, isn't it? But in October, really excited to welcome our guest on this week. This week we're talking with Simeon. Something a little bit different this week because, we're a very specialised part of the industry. Simeon is a highly experienced butler. Pretty much done it all. Worked for everyone. Worked his way up. Very sort of hands-on approach, and he now has a very successful Butler School. So this will be really interesting for listeners who are potentially considering a move into the role of butler, or those that are in it and looking to sort of learn more and step up. So lots to cover today. Welcome, Simeon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Philippa. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
So tell everyone where you're based.
So I'm based up in Scotland. My office and my house is both just outside Glasgow, if you know the area. So that's where, but we do cover, well, as much of the world as we physically can, but from sunny Scotland.
Yeah, fabulous. So gorgeous up there when it's dry, but so gorgeous up there.
Well, you're narrowing it down a bit but you know.
Are you in lockdown at the moment?
Yes. Scotland's slightly stricter than England. It's not far off the same.
So getting into it then. So I know that you describe yourself as a modern butler. What does that mean? Tell us what a modern butler is.
Well, do you know, interestingly, because I trained as a very, very traditional old school butler. That's how I trained. You know, it was always morning suit every day. Very much that kind of classic image of a butler. But that evolved for me when I started working for private clients, especially when I started working for younger clients in central London, Chelsea, Belgravia, places like that. I had to quickly evolve that what they wanted was a modern butler. Now, a modern butler can turn their hand to almost anything. They're not there just to serve, you know, gin and tonics at 7 and afternoon tea at 3 and all this kind of stuff. And of course, that's not to say they don't do that, because of course they do. But they're also arranging the household accounts. They're looking after the transfers to the private jets. They're, finding the best deals on artwork. They're shopping from, working as a personal shopper. I mean, a modern butler, they basically do everything. Is how it's best described, and use a lot of very modern systems to do it. I mean, there's a lot of, one of the main tools of a modern butler is not so much a silver tray as a smartphone. It's changed a lot in the industry, and also, your dress, the morning suit very rarely got worn as a modern butler. It'd normally be something along the lines, a sports jacket and a shirt. The clients usually want you to blend into the background. They don't want an obvious butler most of the time. They just want someone who looks like one of their entourage, one of their guys. Yeah. Who's just in the background. And that's how they kind of introduce you. They're like, oh, this is my guy, Simeon. He'll help you out, more than saying my butler. So that's what I mean.
So it must be very closely aligned with a house manager role.
There's no real dividing line. That's the thing. Like, certainly my employers over the years, they sometimes called me a house manager. They sometimes called me a butler. They sometimes call me like a major domo. They're all just titles. At the end of the day, you just do anything that's required. And, they might suddenly say, oh, we have a really formal dinner for 20 tonight. And you will. You put the white tie on and you will serve a very formal dinner. Or they might be having popcorn and burgers in the cinema room with their mates. Or you might be doing something very much in the office and you just do what you need to do.
Yeah, fabulous. And a great sort of role to have in the house, because I suppose a house manager often probably doesn't have the level of service experience that you would, yet you could manage a house. Is there much management of other staff involved in the role of modern butler, or would that normally lend itself more to the house manager?
again, it really depends house by house. I mean, some houses you'll have 20, 30 staff, you know, around the grounds, and that will come under the remit of the butler or the house manager, however you look at it. But these days, more and more people are just having one member of permanent staff, or maybe two, and everyone else is brought in as a sort of daily, you know, a daily cleaner, daily gardeners, etc., etc. So households are definitely getting smaller, but that actually adds a lot more to the organisation, because everything still needs to get done. But you can't just say, yeah, you know, Jim the gardener will do that. He's always here, because that's not the case. You've always got to be organising it.
Yeah, you know what, I completely agree with this whole sort of like modern butler angle, where, you know, we at Silverthorne, we talk often about how, well, I personally believe there's just a younger generation of ultra high net worths nowadays, especially down in London. And what comes with this younger generation is just a different sort of mentality when it comes to how they want their homes run. They don't want, they've got young families, they don't want a team of 30 downstairs, upstairs stuff, all that kind of stuff. Like they want a much more smaller team, a much more modern, like elevated way of the way their home is run. They definitely don't want the white gloved sort of formal service. And yeah, we come across this all the time. You obviously still have your stately homes and your certain properties that do require that formal side of things, but from a full-time member of staff point of view, nowadays people don't want that on a full-time basis. They want a much more comfortable environment and atmosphere. And yeah, we talk about this younger generation of ultra high net worth all the time, and I think that the role of modern butler is exactly what they're looking for.
It is, and it's something that's important that we all evolve and keep like up to scratch. You know, this is what I always think about training and anything. It doesn't stop. You don't train and then you don't learn anything else. I mean, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to keep up with the latest trends and the latest thing, and that's got to be the same for anyone if they want to stay at the top of their game.
Yeah, definitely. I did a podcast last week, a couple of weeks ago, with Clara, who's a house manager in New York, and she had an engineering degree from South America, came over to New York and started right at the bottom of the ladder using English as a second language and built her way up. But people don't expect her to have the engineering knowledge and the level of tech knowledge that she has. And she's implemented in her house fingerprints when people arrive. So instead of these timesheets all slotted and it's just like, and there's so many modern things and modern like technologies that can be used and are used just to make our lives easier. And I think those people that embrace technology and innovation will just, you know, stay ahead and, you know, keep delivering to clients ultimately what they're looking for, which is efficiency and, you know.
Yeah, and you do, and it does change really quick. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that I was like speccing things like Questron and Luminex panel, all this kind of thing in the house, and that was state of the art then. And now it's totally out of date. Now a £20 Google Nest will do what that £5,000 system did 5 years ago. It just changes so quick.
Well, and even over the last 6, 7, 8 months over lockdown, like, who the hell was bothered about video interviews quite so much as they are now? Like, look at Zoom, and like how people are having to embrace, you know, the whole remote working and getting things done during sort of pandemic. So like, even this year's been like huge changes, isn't it? So, okay, Fab. So where did all this start for you then? So take us right back in your career.
Yeah, right. Well, let's go right back. I actually, quite unusually these days, I mean, I've always been a butler. So I started as a footman, you know, the most junior butler at about 18 years old at Leeds Castle in Kent. And I was actually very, very lucky because that was a training position. Previous to that, I'd been a waiter, you know, a shift manager, supervisor, things like that in restaurants and cafes. So then the head butler at Leeds Castle, an amazing guy called Russell Esgate, he sort of took me under his wing. He said, look, you're wasting your time working in restaurants. Come and train under me. He said, I'll train you up to be my under butler, and then one day you'll be head butler. And that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, I was probably in training under him for about 4 years before, and then I was made under butler, directly answering to the head butler, and later on I became head butler there. And, and that to me was an amazing foundation, a very formal butler training. That was back in the days when if you did something wrong, you didn't have something go through HR. You got a clip round the ear. It's a different kind of environment.
Yeah.
I remember my first day on the job, they had I think it was 500 chairs at one end of the castle, and about a quarter of a mile away at the other end of the castle, it's a huge place, was the banqueting hall they wanted it in. And all the rest of the butler team was sat in the pantry and just said to me, new boy, you move those chairs. And I got up to about the 400th chair before one of them pointed out there was a chair trolley to bring them along. And then, I'm sort of dripping with sweat, exhausted. I got to almost the last chair, and one of them said, what I always do is just load them on the van and drive them round to the back door. That's much quicker. But I took it, and that's sort of set me up. That kind of training actually set me up for the knowledge of just how hard you have to work.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's good. I think those that breeze into these sort of cushier jobs, it doesn't do them any favors, because you're going to get, at some point in your career, you're going to get these difficult jobs. And if you've never had them before, you're not going to like it. And I think starting with the full on, head first, hardcore, traditional roles, probably in a larger team with a strong hierarchy, you have no choice but to put in the hours and sort of grind it out. But you learn so much better that way, and you take so much from it. And if I look back at some of the jobs that I probably enjoyed the least, or I thought was the hardest, is the roles that I took the most from. So things don't come easy in life, do they?
They don't. No. Hard work, big rewards.
A lot of people on the podcast as well talk about this, the importance of this sort of figurehead, mentor figurehead that some people have been fortunate enough to have, and how that first role and that first mentor were real key in the sort of building of their career. It's nice that you had that as well.
Yeah. If you can find someone who can sort of pull you up and polish you off, that's you need someone that can sort of I always say that butlers, they're not created, they're polished. They start rough and they get polished into being a proper butler. So. Yeah,
fair. And so 4 years on, what point did you decide to move on from that role?
Well, basically, I became head butler, so I got as high as I could in that environment. And actually, things then at the castle, they changed. They went in a different direction. They went in a more hotel-y direction, less of a private household direction, which wasn't where I wanted to be. So then I went on to work in private households, and had some wonderful, wonderful experiences working for people, managing very small estates for people and things like that. And I realized that was what I really enjoyed, being a less formal butler, being a house manager, looking after these start with country estates in Essex, places like that, and then I moved into London, into Belgravia, and that's where I got a job looking after a very senior, very important person in the Middle East. And from there, that really took me to the next level, because, then you're looking at being like an international butler and house manager. You're working on their yacht, on their private jet, that kind of thing. And, and I learned so much within the role. You always develop. That's the thing.
Yeah. And the minute you start incorporating travel into your role, that's a whole nother, element of challenges and difficulties, and walking into different properties and needing to work immediately, not knowing anyone.
Yeah.
But challenging and great to do these kind of roles when you're personally able to, if you've not got any ties in the UK and that kind of thing. When these roles come along, we get asked all the time, I've got this opportunity, but it's so different to what I've done before. It's going to take me real out my zone. It's going to take me around the world. Oh my God, take it. Take it.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
And that's always my advice.
Yeah, exactly. I always say take it. I was saying worst case scenario with these things, come home. like worst case scenario, hand your notice in, come home, like providing, like, you know, if that's the worst that's going to happen, then the best case scenario, you know, your career massively steps forward.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you're too much in your comfort zone, you're never going to improve.
No.
You have to step out of your comfort zone to get to the next level. You know, when you find a job's so easy, either you're not developing within that job. You know, I'm not one to say jump to a new job all the time. That's very much not, you know, that's not what I'm about. But, you know, when a job's too easy, you either should be pushing yourself within that role to go further, or maybe start looking for your next challenge, one or the other.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd also find it incredibly boring to get to a point in my career where you just go to work and you come home and you can do it with your eyes shut.
Yeah.
Your days must drag, super boring, you're not going to get anywhere. It's honestly, it's mad. You must have it as well when you speak to people coming on your courses. Like the amount of people I speak to and they're like, oh, you know what, I really, really hate my job. I'm like, oh, that's such a shame. You know, how long have you hated it for? As long as I've been here, really. Well, how long have you been there? Well, 10 years. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I get so frustrated. I struggle to even talk, especially friends. If I've got friends that, I hope my friends aren't listening, I've got friends that bitch about their job. Every time I see them, I just run out of patience. I don't know what more I can do for them. Like, only you can control that and change that.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't understand it. And of course, sometimes, you know, you're in a position where you've got a million requests and you're like, and you think, oh God, I hate this job. But you don't really, you're just like up to here in stress. But then when you've achieved all those things, you're like, yes, that is the best. Brilliant. I love my job. This is so good. It's the difficulty that makes you enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I said it before, maybe on the podcast, but I say it all the time. You would never live in a house that you hate. You would never stay with a partner that you hate. You would never, I don't know, go back to restaurants that you hate. But yet we spend more time at work than we do anywhere else in waking hours.
Yeah.
Yet so many people settle for jobs that they really, really don't like very much, which is just, to me, incredibly lazy. Yeah. Or fearful, or I don't know.
Fearful, I think, is what it usually is. Yeah.
To be fair, this market different. Stay in your jobs, everybody. Like, just
right now. Yeah.
Stay in your jobs. Yeah. But yeah. So where are we today then? So bring us up to speed to like your life today and what you want to work.
So today it's a bit different. So I mean, I still class myself as a butler because I still work as a butler. But I run this company, Rosset Bespoke Butlers, and what we do is we do quite a lot of different things, to be honest. But we have our Butler School, as you've already mentioned, which is one of the main things. It's one of my great passions is training people. Because I was so lucky to get such good training as a young man, I'm really passionate about like trying to give that to other people and trying to push that forwards and play that on. But the major revenue side of the business is providing butlers to people for short-term placements. Like that's anything from 1 day to 1 year. You know, well, short-term, not permanent staff. And you know, I like to think I'll do my best to get someone to someone anywhere in the world within sort of 24 hours. That's not a guarantee, but that's definitely the aim, that someone can phone me and within 24 hours we'll get them someone. Because you know, a lot of what we do is like sick cover and things like that, so people need the butlers really quick because they can't wait for them.
Yeah.
And then you know, we also manage houses for people. So we have houses and estates in Scotland that need that house manager role, but we take it on for them. So that's like the other side of the business. And I try, like I say, and do as much of it personally as I can. So I'm always in that. I mean, that's not to say anything. I've got a brilliant team who are all fantastic. If I just never came to work again, it probably wouldn't make any difference because the team's so good. But I wouldn't like that. I like to be at the front.
Well, and keeps you busy, and you know, you keep your finger on the pulse, you know, and it's ultimately what you're passionate about. You would be unhappy if you got to the point where you stopped doing what you love and you just told other people to do it. You know, that's not who you are.
Exactly.
Predominantly up. I know you do everything worldwide, but would you say more than 50% of what you do is in Scotland?
Oh yeah. Scotland's our main thing, looking after estates, castles, you know, it's very much, it's quite old school actually. What we tend to do is, we're talking about being a modern butler, but funny enough, most of the stuff we do here is being a very traditional butler. You know, still have a few clients in London internationally and etc., but Scotland's the big place for us.
Well, I think what a lot of what you do is the shooting side of things, and when people go on shoots, they want that real Englishy, like traditional experience.
They do, yeah. And a lot of the people we look after are not from Britain. You know, a lot of them are, you know, American, Middle Eastern, etc. And they expect a very, very high level of service, and they also want a bit of British tradition in there.
Yeah, for sure. So I've never worked in a shooting lodge myself, but from what I understand, working a shoot season, for those that are listening and are interested, pretty hardcore, isn't it? Like the level of service is quite a lot.
Yeah,
I think.
Oh yeah, there's you know, however long your season is, don't really expect any time off. Don't expect, it's not like, you know, the obvious comparison would be like the yacht life or the ski season, but it's actually quite different, because when you're on a shooting estate, you're doing breakfast every day, which is early.
And big breakfast as well. It's not
big breakfast, and it's early because they've got to be out quick. So it's early, it's fast. Then you've got 11s, so there's not much gap before 11s. Then you've got the lunch, which you normally have to load into a Land Rover, drive to the top of a mountain, lay up in a bothy at the top of a mountain, take it down again, drive it back again, ready for afternoon tea at 3 o'clock, and then you've got dinner. You know, so if you think about it, there's not a lot of time. I mean, I don't want to sound bad though, because it's also brilliant. Remembering you're getting to drive to the top of a mountain, off-roading a Land Rover, serve interesting people. I mean, it is also fantastic fun, but it's hard work.
It is hard work, and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand about the private sector. You get some, especially younger people, that think parts of this job is ever so glamorous. They think they're going to be flying private everywhere. They think they're going to be, well, they are sometimes, working on the yachts and working in shooting estates. It's going to be fabulous and very Instagram worthy and all the rest. But in the reality, it's the hardest work you'll probably ever do, and you'll thrive from it. The right people and the people that have successful careers in this sector thrive from those kind of full busy days, and it's where they get their buzz and they absolutely love it. But God, it's knackering and physically tiring as well. You know, it's labour intensive. You're on your feet the entire time.
Yeah. I actually was looking after some fishermen last week, and I had, you know, on your phone you have your step thing.
Yeah.
And fishing is pretty much the same layout as shooting. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
And big, you know, it's in a castle as well, so you're going up and down flights of stairs. And every day I was well over 20,000 steps every day, you know, and that's not including loading firewood. Like, you know, you've got loads of fires going that need fed, and you know, that's all up to you.
Yeah, exactly. So we're talking miles, like miles walked a day.
Yeah, it's like 15 miles or something like that, and it's up and down steps and up a mountain and all this.
Right. So if somebody was to come to you and potentially train with you and get work through you, and they're working on a shooting estate, what are the size of the teams like? Do you normally get one butler doing all this, or there teams of butlers?
It varies hugely, and it all varies really depending on how much the clients want to pay, to be honest. Realistically, to put it down to sort of vulgar terms. I mean, when we look after, like, you know, someone like a sheikh or something like that, we basically have a butler per guest. So, and you're still kept busy, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean it's easy, because, you know, there's a butler per guest amount of work to do.
Yeah.
But when you're looking after something that might be more like a syndicate shoot, you know, they're just some good old boys, then you're probably having a butler per set of 8 or something like that. So it varies a lot, but you're always going to be kept busy.
And is the butler expected to do other work aside from service within the lodge? So who makes the beds and things like that?
It's not usually the butler that has to make the beds. And I always say it's very, very important that a butler should know how to do that in case they have to. Very important. And in case they have to show someone else how to, for that matter.
Yeah.
You don't usually have to make the beds and stuff, because we're usually very busy with all that sort of front of house stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they might get us to do turn down to help out. So, you know, the housekeepers will come in and change the beds, but we might just go around and shut the curtains to do turn down, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's all about being a team, of course. You know, there should never be that time you're like, I won't do that. I'm a butler. No one who works for me has that attitude. I won't have it. If I ever hear someone come back, I'll say the butler said they wouldn't clean your boots for you, the butler said they wouldn't do this, then that's not the right person to be on my team.
To be honest with you, I think that is such a common view across anyone who manages staff in the private sector. And I think anybody that ever utters those words or has that attitude is just not going to succeed.
Yeah.
Because the people around you are going to be like, get out. Like, yeah. not interested at all.
Yeah, it's 100%. If whatever, I mean, I know myself, whatever I get asked to do, or not even asked, that's not even, I shouldn't even have to be asked. I just, if I see a toilet that needs cleaning, I'm not going to spend half hour finding someone else to clean it. I'm going to clean it because it needs doing. And it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. When people probably think of traditional butlers, they probably think of guys, probably. Which they shouldn't.
Yeah, traditionally, I mean, if you look at Wikipedia, it says male.
Yeah. And how are you finding the gender balance now? Would you say do you have lots of female butlers come through your school, or is it more males?
No, it's probably 80% men, which is a real shame because that actually does not reflect what the market wants.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a lot, as you know very well, there's an awful lot of jobs that specifically want women. And there's lots of jobs that don't have a preference. So, you know, when you took it on average, really what you'd want is a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Because that would obviously be the fairest split. But I had a message recently from someone and they were describing what they wanted to do. And they were saying, would this be a lady's maid? What is this? And I was like, that's a butler. And she was like, oh yeah, but I'm a woman. I said, that doesn't matter. It's not, the title is not specifically for a gender, for the work that you're doing.
I think that's what people like you and me need to really try and sort of shift in the market, because people will say to me, I want a butler, they'll mean a guy. I want a stewardess or a hostess, I want a girl. I would probably say if people do request a gender to us, women are requesting more than men. But then we do a lot of recruitment out in the Middle East, and that for cultural reasons as well. But it is funny when people, if it's for cultural reasons and you're looking after women in the house, I understand that. But other than that, you know, people are surprised when we send female chefs. People are surprised when we send male housekeepers, and it's just bizarre that it's still a thing, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had this. Actually, it's really good that you make an example the other way around. I sent a male housekeeper to someone, and it's very rare I do housekeepers, to be honest, but I did send a male housekeeper, and the person said, "Oh, you didn't send me a proper housekeeper."
Oh, so rude.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Oh, it was a man. He's not. He doesn't really know." And it's like, no, that's still a housekeeper, you know. It's not.
I know, it's bizarre, isn't it? Male nannies aren't very popular still. The service staff for us probably really 50-50 now, especially in the Middle East. We do a lot of males, a lot of females. But I do think but then I suppose, you know, if there's a lot of physical elements, especially with what you do, and I suppose, would women get more tired? I don't know, physically?
I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of old school butlers who would certainly count as being a lot less fit physically than a lot of the girls I know, to be honest with you. One thing that one of my clients did explain to me, and I had to say fair enough. He said, look, I only want a male butler, and I was trying to place this female. I was going, but she can do everything, and she can. She was brilliant. And he said, but look, the thing is, my guests are old. They're in their 70s, 80s. And he said, the moment they walk in the door, I, of course, want the butler to take up the bags and unpack for them. He said, but if they see a woman, they will not let her carry the bags.
Yeah, they'll feel bad.
Even though they can barely carry the bags themselves. They're 80 years old and they can't even walk up the stairs, let alone with their luggage. They will not, for chivalrous reasons, allow a woman to carry them. So that is the one time I had to say, oh, okay, I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
A politeness thing in this scenario, but you know, that's very specific.
It's very specific, and I think that's sort of all feeds into this whole modern view on service. And I think this whole sort of the younger generation of ultra high net worths and this more modern approach to managing a home and doing your recruitment, that's where gender, it doesn't really matter. People don't really, nowadays, a lot of our clients don't really mind male, female. It's only when we talk about the more traditional position, when people want a traditional this, a traditional that, that's when the genders become consideration for them anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
When people come to you, do they expect a British butler? Do you place foreigners?
Some people, I mean, a lot of like my number two in the company is actually Brazilian, and some people do very much specify that you have to be British, but I mean, I think I would call it a British style of butlering,
Agreed.
which is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to be British to do a British style of butlering, you know.
Yeah.
And if you were boxing, if you were say if you're a boxer and you box Queensberry rules, that doesn't mean you're from London. That's just the rules, you know. So
well, exactly, and you get British chefs that can do French cuisine, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again, it's just wondering what sort of people's viewers are. So the school that you do, so tell us a bit about that and the courses available and why and the type of people that may come and do the course and what it does for their career.
Yeah, I mean, we have a real variety of people from around the world, actually, from as far away as like Florida and Beijing and various other places like the Caribbean. But we have the course that sort of, our 4-week course is sort of split into two. So we've got 2 weeks of formal traditional butler training, very much service orientated, very much your, you know, that kind of butler in your head with the white gloves and that kind of thing. That's 2 weeks of it. And then 2 weeks where we concentrate really heavily on house management and modern butlering and lifestyle management, you know, shopping, making appointments, arranging, that kind of thing. So then people have the choice. They might already be very experienced about doing one or other of those things. For example, a year or two ago, I had a guy who'd been a very successful house manager but never done any service. And he said, look, I want to just build my skills. I want to also do service. So it's brilliant. So I did a 2-week course for him that was basically entirely service orientated because that's what he needed. I didn't need me to tell him to suck eggs. He knew that. So, you know, that's why we try and keep it quite flexible. We have our, you know, of course we run here in Scotland. Beautiful thing about Scotland is we have these estates, these big castles, and it's all very Downton Abbey, and people love that, you know, because you stay in the rooms and you train there. Also, starting from November, we have a school in Barbados as well. So anyone who's looking for a bit more sunshine and beach on their downtime while they're studying to be a butler, they can do that. It's also quite interesting to see the international ideas of what you call the place. Like when I was setting up the school in Barbados, they were like, look, you've really got to call it the house management and butlering. Whereas in the UK, we call it butlering and house management. Because in the UK, a butler is someone who's very revered and very looked up to. But in the Caribbean, a house manager is looked up to and a butler is maybe thought of being a step down. So it's just interesting about what, you know, what a name means.
And these courses, do people generally travel in for the course, or is it local people that are just local and happen to find it?
It's nearly all people travelling in.
Yeah.
We do local people. We did in 2019. We did a free course for people who were from either underprivileged backgrounds or long-term unemployed, which I really enjoyed doing. Got some fresh blood into the industry. Hoping to do more of them in the future. That we had a lot more local people, a lot of people from Glasgow and, you know, this sort of area. But generally, it's people who are already quite experienced in the industry, and they'll travel for a long way to get to the course.
Yeah, and I just think the course is such a good idea because even if somebody works in hospitality and they've been working in a local restaurant or a hotel or whatever, it's still difficult for people to get into the private sector, and mainly because they don't know anything about it, they don't have any contacts, it's a world they know nothing about. And so I think some kind of course like this and a training environment is good for them because it just gives them a good insight into what they can expect, and it may be enough to put them off. Equally, it may be enough for them to be like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And then obviously when people then go and get their first role at whatever level, they have some kind of grounding.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important, and it has to be realistic as well. Like one thing that I'm really hot on is the course. It has to be realistic. A lot of people say to me, this is really much harder work than we expected. We thought you were just going to show us stuff and we were going to just listen. Not at all. I mean, people are like, oh, my feet are throbbing, you know, I can't believe it's this much physical work to do the course. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't be doing you any favors if I made the course easy and then you get a job off the back of it and the job's too hard. You know, train hard, fight easy. That's the way to go. Yeah,
definitely. And I suppose the other massive benefit of people coming to the course is they're then on your radar as a recruiter. And so, you know, when, you know, if they're much more likely to be considered by you for placements if they've done your course, obviously.
Yeah, because obviously I know exactly what they're like, and I've suggested people for positions. I'm like, look, I've had this person on the course. I know that they're particularly good at X, Y, and Z, very interested in something. So I've been able to make a personal reference for them, and you know, an honest one, because I've seen them really well, and I would never give a reference for someone that I didn't know well.
Yeah. I guess another use of your course, if any sort of clients are listening, or if I come across any clients that have teams of staff who they just want to do some refresher training, or they just want to upskill their current team that they're very happy with, it would be a good opportunity, you know, a good option for those people.
Yeah, it would. And we do that for both private and hotels, actually. A few months ago, I was training the Butler team at the Lanesborough Hotel in London.
Nice.
So that was, and just like you say, they were already at a very high level. Of course they were. It's the Lanesborough. They're famous butlers, the Lanesborough Butlers. So they were already, and I was just there to just help them just keep their skills fresh, you know, and training is something that never finishes.
No, and as you say, especially because it's an ever-evolving industry anyway, and service will always evolve. So what is it you love about this sector then? So if someone said to you, or if someone new said to you, look, I'm thinking about getting into the private sector, what do I need to know? Why do you do it? Like, what would your advice be to somebody new to the industry?
Well, the thing for me, it's always been the same. It's always been the variety. It's the people, it's the doing different things all the time. I mean, I remember like I've already mentioned my first day of carrying all the chairs, but I remember my second day, someone threw me the keys to a brand new Aston Martin and said, can you go and park that for me? And I was pretty hooked just there, you know, 18, someone's like, there's my Aston, can you go and park it for me? Yeah, I can do that. But, you know, and you do so much interesting and exciting things. Now, and like you say, I don't want to over glamorize it. I don't want to say you're only going to be flying on private jets. I don't want to say you're only going to be driving Aston Martins. You're also going to be cleaning toilets and, you know, cleaning up sick where someone's, you know, really horrible stuff you're going to have to do as well. You will. But sometimes you are going to be flying on your own in a private jet. You know, I mean, the first time that happened to me, it was surreal. I had a whole great big Learjet and I was the only person in it. They left the doors open to the cockpit so that the pilots could chat to me as I was going along. And even, you know, I even got like all the in-flight food and everything. Like, even though I'm only staff, I wasn't expecting it. But, you know, you're like, this is pretty amazing that I'm doing this.
Yeah, sometimes you have these moments where it's like, pinch yourself. It's like, this is cool. But it can be ever so changing. It could be that morning you could be cleaning sick, and then an hour later on a private jet. It could be literally go from two extremes.
Definitely. And that's what keeps it interesting. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So COVID, like, and you're new, and the kind of work that you do, like, typically when is the shooting season? Is it about now?
Yes, yeah. It starts, for us, the really big one starts the 12th of August, which is for the grouse, the glorious 12th.
Okay, so over sort of like this sort of like few months. So how is it affecting you up there? So like, are people coming up?
Well, for us, it's been pretty devastating, to be absolutely honest. People are still allowed to shoot, but they're not allowed to party. So we always looked after the party part. I was hearing about, you know, one very, very, you know, many VIP person who last year we looked after, and this year I know they just had sandwiches, like pre-packed sandwiches was their lunch. I mean, they wouldn't, you know, normally they have an incredible banquet with loads of my staff working it. So yeah, I've done some training for corporate training, but the backbone of the business has not existed this year at all. you know, I'm really looking forward to getting back into it, but we've done this or that. But
well, you know what? It's not you and it's not me and it's not even recruitment. It's the entire world. It's every sector. Like we've taken a massive hit. I suppose what I keep telling my team and trying to sort of keep morale up is it's not like everything we've done has just been a waste and it's all crumbled and we're back to where we started. It's just been put on hold.
yeah,
like because you've built your business up, you've built yourself up, and you're at a certain point, and it's not for wasted effort. It's not gone anywhere. It's still there. It's just paused.
yeah.
And the minute we can move, we can just pick it back up again. It's not like, oh, we've got wasted time. It's all of our good work's been undone. It hasn't at all. It's all been for a reason. We're just bloody waiting. It's limbo time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so true. And actually, I've had some wonderful conversations with my clients where they've been phoning me up and they're saying, "Oh, Simeon, we're coming up, or we're doing this, and we'd love to get you and your team along, but we just can't, because we've only got so many people we're allowed, and we can't exchange anyone from member staff." But they've still thought of me, and they've still we know that next year, all being well, knock on wood and all this, we're going to be busy again.
Yeah, for sure. It is ultimately, it's not an industry that's going to go anywhere. It's an industry that people love, that the wealthy will always need staff and will always want certain experiences, and the only thing stopping them is just the restrictions on travel. And the minute that's released, which it will be, it's all there. There are other industry, hospitality industries, that are so much more heavily affected than us. Imagine if you were organising music tours or gigs or events and stuff. So
possible.
Yeah, where next year, 2 years, you might be waiting. It's just it's just affecting everybody everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, and like you say, just keeping a brave face on it, and just remembering, you're spot on. It's not gone forever.
No,
it's just on pause, and it's far from start. Like, I remember when I was starting from scratch, and I was trying to create all these creating the contacts is the hard part.
Of course.
But we've got a big book of contacts, and all we've got to do is phone them up again.
Exactly. They're not going anywhere. So, okay, fabulous. So, covering lots of ground, still loads more to cover, but trying to sort of be conscious of time. So, one thing I always ask everybody, because this is not a gossipy podcast, as everybody knows by now, this podcast is purely just to get to know each other a bit better and just bring us all together. It can be quite a lonely place, working in the private sector. We all sort of feel that we're cornered away in our own sort of parts of the world, doing our own little thing. And notoriously, it's a very closed industry. People don't, like, we're both recruiters. Like, who'd have thought we'd be talking together? Like, some recruiters hate talking to recruiters. So the whole point of the podcast is really to just create a bit of a community feel and all sort of share some stories. But what I do love to ask people, because I do find it interesting, is we all have funny things and bizarre things that happen. And whilst we're not going to break any sort of NDAs or anything here, there are definitely things that people do and see in work that are just entertaining and other people wouldn't believe. You have been doing it for long enough, so you must have bags full of bizarre and funny things and stories that you've come across. Anything that you're able to share?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, because I mean, there's been some hilarious moments. I mean, I remember, I get some one-liners in for you. I remember one time having to fly a punnet of tomatoes from Italy to the UK on a private jet. So each tomato was worth about $8,000 by the time it arrived. They wanted these very particular tomatoes. And another time having a naked Russian oligarch dancing on the roof of his Lamborghini when I'm serving him drinks. These are crazy things that would only happen in our industry. But to me, one of the most surreal moments was I was meeting my client's private yacht in Corsica, and the PA had arranged the flights, and the airport was on the opposite side of Corsica from the side that the yacht was supposed to be on. So I jumped out of the airport, got in a taxi. I'm like, well, how much is it going to be? How much is it going to be? And the guy's like, €300. And I'm like, off with you, €300. Don't be ridiculous, thinking it was the port right next to the airport. Eventually, I found out that he was far from ripping me off. That was a perfectly reasonable fee considering. So, we go off, and this mad Corsican driver, and I don't think any Corsicans will be upset with me saying that, because they're proud of the fact that they're insane and drive like rally drivers, like hanging it around corners, like huge, like the tires squealing, all this kind of thing. And eventually he drops me at this deserted marina on the far side of Corsica, and it's just me, and he drives off, and I realize, hang on, I'm just sitting now in the dusk in a deserted marina. There's a few sort of fishing boats, but there's no way that a super yacht could get into this marina, not even close. And I can't see anything on the horizon. And my phone's out of batteries. I'm like, well, hang on, I've just traveled all this way, and it's all been like a big rush and all this, and now there's no one here. And I'm like, what's happened? What's going on? So I just sit down on the end of like one of the docks, watching the sunset. And I'm like, well, I might be spending the night here. I don't know. And then eventually I just see this speck on the horizon. And it's this little tender speedboat just like skipping along. It's getting bigger. I'm like, I hope he's coming to me. I hope he's coming to me. And this speedboat just rolls up with a couple of the deckies on it. And they're like, oh, we've come to collect you. I hope you weren't here too long. I'm like, well, I've been here about an hour, but that's fine. Jump on this speedboat, very Miami Vice. You know, it's into the sun in the middle of the night, just zooming off on this speedboat with these couple of guys. You know, eventually we find the yacht, and basically the owner said, well, I'm not going to sit there waiting for Simeon. We'll go off and someone can go back for him later. But, you know, it's pretty surreal when you get to the point where you just sat in a deserted fishing dock, and then you've got about a 40-minute speedboat ride like this. I mean, it doesn't get much more surreal than that, does it?
It's so surreal. Honestly, people that sit in offices playing with their spreadsheet and doing typically more normal jobs, like, it must blow their mind to hear this kind of stuff, to be like, what do you do today? Well, and have this kind of stories. It's just mad. But again, I suppose the first half of your day, bit of a ball ache, running around everywhere, trying to get to Southern Ireland, not knowing what's going on. But then the second half of the day, when you get picked up, like, that's the glam, that's a cool.
Yeah, so it's got both, hasn't it?
Yeah,
it's
you've got both there. You're running around like a mental lunatic all day, but then you're cruising off to the sunset on a speedboat. As a butler, it's mad. But that, as we said before, it's these kind of things, these kind of days, experiences that will just keep us doing what we do. Do you know what I mean? Super funny, super interesting. Okay, cool. Right, we need to wrap up. Here we go. End of the podcast. Wow. So, as I do each week, I've just got a handful of just real sort of quick fire questions, and I'll let you crack on with your day. So, what's more important to you in a member of staff, attitude or experience?
Attitude, 100%.
100%. You can train everything else, can't you?
Exactly.
Yeah. And as I said before, you've got bad attitude, you just may as well find something else to do in this world. But even that bad attitude, what industry would you do well in? Like, what job would accept bad attitudes? I hate bad attitudes.
Yeah, I don't know. A few of the trades that come around, I think they must specifically look for that. But yeah.
Yeah, fair. Are you a dickhead? You're in. Sit down. What's been your favourite job or your favourite place to work? What's been your career high?
I think it's been the position. I mean, well, excluding my position now as being, director of my own company, but if we exclude that, it was definitely working in Belgravia, looking after a really, really impressive mansion, international butler, that kind of thing. That's good.
Yeah. Well, you're just doing a lot. Like, you're in high level of responsibility. You're like,
always busy. There was a lot of celebrities. My boss, and you had a lot of celebrity friends. So it was just constant sort of, super interesting people.
Yeah, exactly. Again, no 2 day can ever be the same in that kind of environment. What countries have you worked in?
So, I've always been based in the UK, but I've worked in most of the European countries, like all around the Mediterranean, weeks here. A lot of time in ski resorts in Switzerland, south of France, Monaco, those kind of countries mostly.
Cool. But never too far. You're not had to go live in America for 10 years or anything.
No, nothing like that. No, I've been offered a lot of jobs in the Middle East over the years.
Yeah.
And the money's always gone up each time, but I've always resisted.
Well, I think people go work in the Middle East. It's more than just accepting a job. It's not just a job anymore. It's a complete acceptance of a different life and a different lifestyle, which is great for some people, especially in certain parts of their lives, at certain stages of their lives and career. You know, if you're young in your 20s, I think it's a great thing to go and do if you're able to, just for the experience.
Yeah, for me, those sort of offers started to come in a bit late in my career. You know, because that, to be honest, when I was in my 20s, almost no one went out to work in the Middle East. That wasn't like, you know, Dubai was half the size it is now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Twice the size tomorrow, anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, it was a bit early for that. You know, now people offer me sort of telephone numbers to go and work out there. But I've got a family, I've got this, and it's just not right for me.
No. Well, also as well, so from what you're like, so different. Like you would go over there and you'd be one of 400 butlers in a palace. You know what I mean? It'd be such a different thing. Have you ever been fired?
No.
I find it interesting when people have been and their reasons why. And often as well, I find, and I like talking about it as well, because there's sometimes no shame in it, depending on the reason. Because working with a private family, not only do you need to be able to do your job, but you need to fit with the family and they need to fit with you. And that fit can't be assessed well before you start. And so within the first 6 months, there's absolutely no shame in my mind for either party to put their hand up and say, this fit's not going to work for me, you know?
I mean, I've got plenty of friends in private service that have been fired and taken on by the same person 3 or 4 times. They have an argument. You're fired, get out.
Yeah.
Hey, could you come back in, please? It's like...
Yeah, exactly. And things change. They may sell a house and not need it anymore. And then, 2 years later, they buy another property in the same area, you come back. So obviously, gross misconduct, being an idiot, not being regular at your job, there are lessons to be learned from being fired. But in this sector, it can be quite fluid through no fault of anybody's own. And so I'm always interested to see people who've had very successful careers, whether they have and it's ever held them back. So when you're a butler, do you prefer to work alone or do you prefer to work in a team?
I love working as a team. I've actually spent most of my career working alone, but maybe that's why I enjoy working as a team so much, because it's a change. Maybe if it was the other way around, I'd be thinking, oh no, I want to be on my own.
I suppose nowadays for you as well, it's good because you probably handpicked your team. So, so you're not lumped with a team, you're working with a team that you've chosen.
It's my fault if I don't like them.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've done this before. What's your biggest turn off in a member of staff?
I mean, it is basically, as we've said, it's the attitude. If someone comes to work, and what I hate is someone coming to work and the first thing they're like is, when's tea break? When's the lunch break? When do we finish? And that's what quite often you get people turn up for work and they just walk in the door like, what time are we going to finish today? And it's like, well, why don't you try starting before you ask me what time you're going to finish?
I hate that. Like, what are you trying to achieve by asking that question? You're only going to piss me off. Like, stop asking that. And you shouldn't even ask that even up to a minute before you finish. You shouldn't be asking that. It's just so frustrating. Chefs. Love them, hate them, find them difficult, notoriously.
I love them when they feed me. Now, I've actually, to be honest, 99% of the time I've got on really, really well with chefs. There's very rarely that I don't, like very, very rarely that I don't get on. And I think that's mostly because I treat them with a lot of respect.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
I've done some chefing myself, and I know how difficult it is, and I know what it's like being in the kitchen, totally reliant on someone else telling you what's going on and things like that. So I know why they get frustrated. So, I usually get on very well with them.
Yeah, I think some people typically find chefs sensitive, easily upset, but it's like you say, it's because they lack so much control throughout their sort of working day and working life, and tempers can flare and stuff. But typically, I just think it's ever so important that front of house get on well with back of house.
Yeah, And I had I'll try and make it as short as I can, a hilarious thing once with a chef, and it was dessert, he'd made these chocolate fondants, and they were properly made, not these piped ones, properly chocolate fondants. And we're like, right, we're serving, everyone's going in. Someone stands up, starts making a speech. So I'm like, right, okay, we've got to come back. Chef standing behind, like, no, you've got to go. You've got to serve these. You've got to. I'm like, well, okay, all right, we'll go. We walk in. The principal's like, out like this. So we go back, and the chef's like, I told you to go in. I'm like, that's a higher authority. Yeah. You can't fire me. He can. We're waiting.
But I can exactly see how stressful that is for a chef, because
his fondants were perfect. It's my fault in his eyes. It's my fault they weren't going to be perfect when they went on the table.
And from a chef's point of view, the success of their service or the failure of their service is really all about timings, and they have no control over that. So I think they have a very, very difficult job and need to be given more credit than they often do. Often they're deemed as difficult to work with and fiery and angry and all the rest, but they're not. They just have high levels of standards.
Yeah,
and they're proud of their food. And if their food's being delivered not at the level that they want it to, of course that's going to upset them. It would upset us.
And I actually get probably more referrals from chefs than any other like members of staff. Like most of my referrals obviously come from clients, but so many chefs say to their clients, look, can you get Simeon and his team in to serve? Because we're making this food. You've got people who don't know what they're doing serving it, and it's ruining it.
Yeah.
So actually I get a lot of my business from chefs, so I love them.
Well, that's a testament to you, isn't it? So come on, so silver service.
Yep.
How regularly requested is this, or how often is it done anymore, really?
I force it upon people.
You will be served properly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love silver service and butler service, the two slightly different. I think personally that giving down, coming around, serving the food like that, I just think that's the top level of service, and that's what I like. I know that chefs often don't like it because they want to make the pattern on the plate. But for me, especially in a lot of country house and castles where the kitchen is about 5 minutes walk from the dining room, in which case you need something to keep it warm, and a big metal flat with a cloche is ideal to keep something hot, and a plate is not ideal to keep something hot.
And I think the type of a lot of the work that you do with the student lodges, it really lends itself well to that. It's what you would expect. It fits really well. Yeah. So it's perfect, really. And so it's great that you're able to continue delivering the level of service that you truly love to do, and it's appropriate for the property that you're in at the same time.
Yeah, it just seems right, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So finally, do you see yourself doing this forever? Is the private sector a place that you can see yourself working in until you retire? Because you said something.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my plan is to expand the Butler School. Like I say, we've got UK and Barbados now, and I'm hoping to bring online Beijing and a couple other places within the next few years. We're looking at a new permanent home for that, and some really, really big events that we're doing as well, like when we're allowed to, coming up. So there's a lot of new exciting stuff happening in the sort of Rosset Bespoke future. Yeah. So certainly plenty to keep me interested there.
Yeah, fabulous. I think a lot of people echo that, people in this sector. It is a sector where we can comfortably work for a long time. It's not really a sector that you would, that you outgrow or that outgrows you. So it's perfect, isn't it? Okay, fabulous. So how can people find this school? So firstly, I'm definitely going to be recommending you. So people come to us all the time and ask us about for recommendations in terms of where they should train. So we will definitely send people your way. How can people reach out to you and find you?
Well, I mean, all the usual. I mean, the Rosset Bespoke Butlers website is obviously the obvious one. If you want to see some nice photos and what we're getting up to, then social media is great. Yeah. We've got, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, you won't see a lot on Twitter apart from me ranting about stuff, but feel free. I've got YouTube channel, Rosset Bespoke Butlers YouTube channel, where you can also watch a lot of bits of my school totally for free. So people who want a bit of free training can go on there. And of course, it's not going to be a substitute for the whole thing, but there's quite a few sort of 15, 20-minute videos they can watch on there. And my contact details can easily be got, and on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, fabulous. So when we put this out, we'll go out in a couple of weeks, we link to you. Every time we put a bit of content regarding this podcast, we link to you. So people can definitely, via this podcast, come straight to you, which is great.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Well, look, that's a wrap. I'm going to have to let you get on with your day. I could talk to you all day long. Right, try and keep it half an hour, 40 minutes. When the minute we get to an hour mark, I'm like, right, I really have to try and wrap this up now. But no, it's just a sign of a lovely chat, you know. So really, really lovely to have you on. Thanks everybody to listening to yet another episode. If you'd like to come on and be a guest, please email me at philippa@silverswanrecruitment.com. Please come and follow us, rate us, review us, all the usuals. You can find obviously this podcast across all three platforms: YouTube, Spotify and Apple. And then finally, if we can help you with your job search or help you with your recruitment, please reach out to Silver Swan Recruitment. That's a wrap. Thanks everybody.